And welcome back to the Legislative Lounge. I am your host, Nate Bigelow. My co-host, Mike, is unfortunately not here tonight because he actually got called into work. But we have the next best thing, if not equally best, is the entire cast of the Patriots Den. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us. It feels a little weird to be on a Tuesday.
In the afternoon.
In the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
Normally I'm in bed by now, past my bedtime at 7:18. But no, it's good to be here on the Legislative Lounge.
I was say right now, Patrick, you're about the oldest 19-year-old, 20-year-old I've ever met. I'm just saying. Right now. But man, this has been an eventful week. I don't know about y'all, but it's been keeping me busy. Let me put it that way. Everybody's been hearing about the situation over the Middle East. So we're going to dive a little bit into it because there's been a lot of movement with it. Obviously everybody knows what happened on Saturday. Trump came out and talked about it. But even today, there was even more movement and connection to it. So just right off the bat, though, everybody knows that Iran and Israel have been going back and forth at each other about, basically forever. And it has to do with, stemming situations that go thousands of years back, right? And it's just every single year, if it's not Iran, it's Iraq or somebody trying to attack Israel or vice versa. And it's one of those things. But in this particular matter, it seems like there's a little bit more to it. So what is your take, Patrick?
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone watched the Patriots Den, there was me and Brian were just looking back at some clips earlier today, and I said that the Middle East is a area that was built on war. As far as we can go back, they've been built on war. The founding of Western civilization lies on the fact of how unstable leadership was in the Middle East. And so I think that it should come to no surprise. A lot of people says that this is biblical prophecy. I disagree. I think that this is just two countries that are both bloodthirsty and want to have their way and do whatever they want to do and run the Middle East the way they see fit. And because of that, we have a lot of people who I like to call the Facebook mafia running around thinking that they just know all of this geopolitics, and they don't, simply because this is something bigger than and much greater than any of us because of how long it's been happening.
Absolutely. And couldn't have said it better myself. I know we'll get into it a little bit more, particularly what you said there at the end. But what do you got for us, Brian? What's your take?
Yeah, so me and Patrick, we've been disagreeing a little bit over the whole situation, as y'all may have seen on the Patriots Den of the past 2 weeks. But, I wouldn't completely disagree with the take that, war is inherent to the Middle East. It is the cradle of civilization. A lot of the oldest peoples and civilizations do stem from Mesopotamia. But I will agree with you. I do think a lot of people on the internet have been overblowing this whole situation, saying it's end-time prophecy. The destruction of Israel will mount, the coming of Christ. And first of all, Israel will not be destroyed from this war. It's just not going to happen. There's no direct land connection for a war to happen between. Turkey is up north, and they're not going to do anything. Syria is recovering from a civil war. Same deal, not doing anything. Iraq is, I would argue, a semi-client state of the United States. We have military bases in Iraq as well. Probably won't do anything, and that completely shuts off Iran and Israel from going anywhere near each other. So neither state was necessarily going to fight each other. And by extension, I don't think Iran was going to have a regime change either here. The U.S. can't afford a land war in Iran. It's Afghanistan on steroids. You have 90 million people living there almost, and it's a mountainous country. And they have a very strong military as well for the region. Hence, once again, it was a missile war instead of a boots on the ground. And frankly, I would argue the whole Revelation thing, where Israel being destroyed brings the end times. The closest time Israel has ever been to getting destroyed was during the Yom Kippur War, which was down in the 60s, I believe. Mm-hmm. They were actually on the brink of being destroyed then and there, but no prophecy happened. We're still here.
No Jesus yet.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, when the whole biblical prophecy thing, don't even get me started on people not knowing the Bible correctly, because it's just one of those things that kind of gets me going, because it's a situation where you got so many people believing in a particular pattern, but they don't actually read it, or they like to slice things up. And so it really has nothing to do with biblical prophecy, because first of all, Iran itself, believe what you want, their military could not stand against Israel. From a technological standpoint, pretty much every I mean, you can even go back to the 70s, right, with the Six-Day War. Basically, the entire Middle East couldn't stand up to Israel, and that was the 70s. Think about all the technological advances. Most of the technology that we have here in America when it comes to our military comes from developers in Israel. Now, we assemble it here, but a lot of it, I think the statistic I was seeing is around 80% of the technology that we have was schematic over in Israel and brought here. So think about all the things that they have there. So, I mean, when it comes from a war standpoint, it was never going to happen. I know Iran likes to puff their chest up, and be that big, try to be the big bad bully. But in all reality, we knew neither side was going to put boots on the ground. It wasn't going to happen. But it's caused a rift in America to an extreme point where you have people saying that World War III is on the rise and Trump is leading us into it. And it's one of those funny things that you really, like World War III, you think it's going to start with Israel and Iran? Come on. I mean, in all reality, these are smaller militaries that really don't affect the world at the immense way that we think it would, right? Here in America, we are obviously allies to Israel, so we always have to step in those regards. And that's what happened here, right? But it's funny to sit here and say that, oh, Trump's going back on his word. He's the president of peace. He said he wasn't going to start no wars because that's all we're hearing right now, right? No. I have a 16.5-minute clip, and I would show you, which I posted most of it on my social medias for anybody that wants to see 3.5 minutes of it, at least, of every single time over his 2024 campaign of when he said, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, right? But what's even funnier about that is nobody talks about how Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris all literally said the same thing or worse. Yeah. Because Hillary Clinton, the golden girl, right, from 2016, everybody loved her. The exact words that she said is, I would bomb the F out of Iran if they tried a nuclear program. And I have that video proof as well. Barack Obama also said that he would utterly destroy them. And the whole everybody knows don't speech from Kamala. So, I mean, it's one of those things. But hearing about all these people talking about Donald Trump leading us to World War III and knowing now, if you didn't know previously, about all the other presidents doing the exact same thing, what was your response to people that are saying that, oh, Trump's leading us to World War III, he's going back, especially to the MAGAs, right, or the Republicans that are fighting against him? What would you say to them in response?
Absolutely. First, I think that the history of knowing, like you named the presidents, there have been so many agreements and deals made between U.S. presidents and Iran of their uranium development that America has a long standing of saying, no, they shouldn't have nuclear weapons. In order for something such as World War III to happen, you'd have to have a side that agrees, that says, no, they shouldn't have any nukes. And then you have to have another side that says, no, we're going to give them nuclear weapons. One, if that were the case, then another country would have just given them the nuclear weapon at that point, and we wouldn't go to a world war. And two, if you truly think there are that many countries that actually matter, that's a harsh way to put it, but it's true, that matter, and is going to side with Iran to a point, or Iran. I know there are some people who are like, if you can't say it right, don't talk about it. Well, Iran. If Iran wants to run its mouth, then other people can join in as well. But there is no country on this earth with the firepower to back Iran to make other countries go, okay, this is serious, we need to get in it, and kick off something such as World War III, when we've already had two, and we all know how the second one ended.
Right.
I mean, aren't the Chinese currently airlifting supplies into Iran?
But once again, when I look at the Chinese, they are a people who like to throw the stone and hide their hand. I don't think China wants to put itself in a position to go to war. China will boast people up to do it and have other people do their dirty work. China's great at that. China themselves, they're not going to do anything because there's too much to lose if they do lose.
I mean, to kind of back that up, though, and I'll let you go here in a second, is the fact that China was actually one of the main voices calling for Trump to call for peace between these two. So,
Well, two things for that. First of all, China needs peace in the Middle East. I think we might have covered this last week on the show. 60% of the world's oil, last time I checked, passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran goes to war, they're blockading that strait. Who's more dependent on Middle Eastern oil, the United States or China?
China.
They benefit from peace, or else fuel prices go up and their economy, God knows what happens to their economy.
Right.
So that's why they want peace. Second of all, this is more to you, Pat. The reason why Chinese involvement in Iran is actually worthwhile is they're not, as far as I'm aware, sending any military troops there. They're sending equipment. Sound familiar? It's what we did in Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
Notice how that didn't escalate into a bigger war, but however, all that American equipment that was there was killing Russians. It'd be the same thing here. China wouldn't be going to war with, America, kind of like Russia never went to war with America. However, Chinese equipment would be killing Israeli and American soldiers in Iran. And that would be the way it works. It would be a proxy war, basically. It wouldn't be a world war. I disagree with the idea it would be a world war. However, for it to be a non-sequential war where nothing happens, I would disagree completely. The Chinese and Iranians do have a partnership. They have, I believe, a lot of infrastructure projects that were being built by the Chinese. The Russians also have an interest in having the Iranians act as a buffer against the West. Because at the end of the day, if you're sending all their military supplies to Iran, that's less equipment going to Ukraine, which makes their war a lot easier. And for China, it's the same deal. If more American attention is going into the Middle East, they're able to be more aggressive against Taiwan, and they're able to push more against Taiwan, which anyone who knows the region knows that's a big goal of the Chinese, to reconquer Taiwan and put it back under their administration. So if the United States is distracted in Europe or the Middle East, that's easier for China. Hence,
go ahead. Finish your thought.
hence why I believe the Chinese, are smartly calling for peace, but also sending weapons to Iran.
No, and I understand all of that. I know that you had mentioned something about the Straits of Hormuz. Now, there was a big thing going all over the news and social media particularly saying that they had blocked it off, right? But the problem is that our Navy's already there.
Yeah.
They couldn't if they tried to. So even if, for instance, if it kind of escalated into it, they wouldn't have the ability to, because we would just bomb the living tar out of anybody coming close to it.
Well, here's the fun thing. This is kind of what happened with the whole Houthi situation. It's not that the Iranians would sink every ship in the Strait of Hormuz. It's that they would sink enough of them to where shipping insurance would go up, and now it's uneconomical to move oil out of the Middle East. Because that's the big thing. Shipping containers that move oil outside of the Middle East, they need to be insured from pirates, foreign attacks, whatever. And now if there's a missile hitting 1 in every 10 of those ships, insurance would not want to cover that, or it would be too expensive to oil wouldn't be coming out of there anymore.
And somebody made that point to me, and I wish I would have brought it up because I didn't think it was going to come up in this conversation. But I was looking into it because you know me, I'm a numbers guy. So I was looking into how much actually oil comes to America, right? Because I'm America first. I'm not huge MAGA or anything like that, but I am America first. So I was like, all right, how much oil actually comes to America from there? And it was very nominal. It was in the single digit percentile. So honestly, it wouldn't really affect us whatsoever. Now I understand from a world stage, sure, but coming from somebody like me, I don't care. So it's one of those things so I understand that. But from a standpoint of those individuals, and I'm assuming that you obviously are a Trump supporter in most things, right? We don't have to agree on everything, right? I personally at first didn't agree with the attacks. Until I learned more information about it. And obviously people are like, well, what's the purpose for it? At this point, it doesn't matter, right? It's done. It's over.
Happened, yeah.
We're moving on. But for those people that are sitting here saying that, Donald Trump moved outside of his powers as president, right? And that some people have even questioned their vote about this because of the whole no peace or no new wars and all that. But in all reality, was this a war? Is this something that Donald Trump is capable of doing from a constitutional or law perspective? And what would you say to the MAGA people?
So my response to that would be, in all effectiveness, it's not a war. It was just a very quick 12-day bombing campaign between two countries, America getting involved around the end of it. It's not a war. It costs us a lot of money because those bombs are expensive. Same with repositioning all those ships as well. However, it's not a conventional war. And I don't think we've really had a conventional war since World War II.
Correct.
So that's not really the issue. But I think when people say Trump is getting us into wars or conflicts, it's the idea that he's getting us entangled in other politics of the other countries. Instead of pushing us away to where we're no longer seen as the enemy of the Middle East, we're no longer seen as the enemy of this country or that country, he's keeping us there entangled. So maybe if a war doesn't happen under Trump's administration, it could be another administration where it happens. Not because Trump started the war, but rather because the seeds for war were planted here. Iran might want to get revenge in 4 or 8 years whenever they rebuild their capabilities. And now those seeds that Trump planted of attacking Iran are going to come to fruition whenever there's a new president in line. And there we go. There's a war started technically by Donald Trump. Maybe not under his administration, but someone else at that point.
Right. And two things in regards to that. First of all, I know you're you're the geopolitical guy, so I want to ask you this question. But first, when it comes to another administration, the one thing that I'm not hearing, which I want your reaction to, because I don't know if you guys know it either, is the fact that these bombings, right, the strategic plan wasn't even planned by Donald Trump. You know who it was planned by?
Raising Cain, correct?
The Biden administration, because they were practicing it last year. So this was already in the works, right? Biden ran on it. Biden talked about it. They were literally running simulations to do this just last year, but nobody's talking about that. Why?
Well, I'll answer this from two different sides, right? Two different sides. Coming from the side sitting on when it's the Patriots Den, and people are used to me being on the glass side. That's what we like to call it. I like to put the scenarios in place. I work at a courthouse. I heard a lawyer say every good trial is like a puzzle. Both sides are going to put a piece and a piece and a piece and a piece together, and whoever you think put together the best puzzle is who wins this case. Of course, the defendant said that, and he won the case. So hey, I want to put two puzzles together. I'm going to put Joe Biden's puzzle together, and then I'm going to put Trump's puzzle together. Joe Biden's puzzle goes, I'm going to be president for 8 years. I'm going to have 2 terms. This situation that we're looking at now is supposed to have happened under Biden. I have to be prepared to strike back because that's what Obama did. And when I do it, no one's going to say anything bad about it because why would they? Then we had the Palestine-Israel thing happen, Gaza, Hamas, all that.
Right.
So Biden goes, uh-oh, I can't do that. That's another puzzle piece because the Democrats are unhappy with me. I'm going to keep this under wraps. So we're going to still do the trainings just in case it gets to the point where they do step in, but we're going to keep it under wraps. Iran strikes Israel. At the time, Biden is very open about not supporting it, telling them to stop, but he takes a very backseat approach because he knows what's on the line. Eventually, between that and the people that saw him on the debate stage and just said, absolutely not, he had to back out. Kamala was going to run. She saw the mistakes of Biden, and so that puzzle was never finished. It had to be backseated because they have an election to win. And so if it ever came out that they were planning to bomb Iran, these pro-Palestine people absolutely aren't going to vote for you. You're already going to lose the election, but by how much are you going to lose? Now it's we're going to lose, but let's not look stupid when we do lose.
Well, so much for that.
Right. Now we have the Trump puzzle. The Trump puzzle goes, we're going to bomb them. We're going to bomb them so much that, what did he say? He said they've never seen so many bombs and it was so successful. We're just going to bomb them. So Trump's puzzle just is a bunch of bombs lined up. And where Joe Biden's auto pin was, he just kind of white-outed it and put Trump. Because if Trump was to come out and say, actually, Biden put this together, not me, how does it look on him? Right?
Right.
It's one of those things where technically you didn't start it, but you are the one who finished it. There was a man that once said, if you win, no one will ask you a question. And if you lose, you shouldn't be there to answer the questions. Y'all can, I don't recommend looking up who said that, but someone said it in history. And he was, and so it's called his story for a reason. And so this was Donald Trump's story. Why would he let the predecessor, who he said was sleepy and old and dementia and just couldn't make a righteous, good decision, why would he give that person credit for an absolutely spectacular, I mean, it was beautiful. No leaks, no nothing. I mean, no one knew. He said 12 days. It happened in like 12 hours. So why would he give Biden that credit for that? So that's why we're not saying that in the news, because Joe Biden doesn't want that in the news and Trump doesn't want it in the news. Biden loves the way he's handled the situation. Actually, you know what? Yes, take that burden off of me. You claim it. The people that love you are going to love you for it, and the people that hate you right now are the ones that already hated you in the first place.
True.
Yeah, just quick clarification. When you say made under the Biden administration, I'm guessing it was made, Pentagon made this plan while Biden was in office, correct?
Yeah, his generals, because we all know Trump went and completely redid all the
Right.
generals ever. So that's why I say the Biden administration,
Yeah.
right? It was his people.
But as far as I'm aware, I don't think Trump really fired any generals. Like maybe high up in the,
The-
cabinet, maybe. But
So who's the black guy that was in that picture that everyone knows with the mask and the thing over his face?
well, that's not a general though.
But who is it? Isn't he the Sec of Defense?
No.
Who was he?
I mean, the SecDef is definitely going to be the primary on all of this.
Yeah,
which
it
is
was
Pete
that
Hegseth,
guy. It was that
right?
guy. He was. It's the black guy with that was wearing that mask in that
Right,
picture.
yeah. The one that disappeared because he had cancer and didn't tell anybody.
Right. Yeah, it was him.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring that up is, once again, I'm a big history nerd. So a big thing the U.S. likes to do is draw up war plans.
Right.
So that way, if anything does happen, they have an idea of what to do.
For sure.
So here with Iran, that was kind of a situation. And a big thing about Biden's career, I guess would be a better way to say it, is he made a lot of connections in the Air Force. He was the reason why a lot of people got the positions they were in the Air Force. Hence, I might be wrong on this, but as far as I'm aware, the retelling of how things went, he knew a lot of people there. It would make sense why under his administration these plans would be made.
Right.
Once again, what was used in this attack on Iran? It was all the Air Force. It
No,
was-
I'm not saying that it's just like it's Joe Biden's fault by any means.
Yeah.
Right.
Trump did it.
Yeah.
Because it was, like you said, a spectacular attack. They weren't detected by anything. And y'all got to understand, if you've ever looked at a satellite image of where Fordo is and all this, and the other two are, it's inland Iran.
Yeah.
So the fact that they didn't have a single shot off on them, their radar didn't pick up on them. I mean, first of all, that might just kind of attest to how
Great
actually,
Iran is, right?
No, yeah. Yeah.
Two things on that real quick. First of all, we use stealth bombers to do this attack. So obviously they have a
So high in the sky. I looked those bombers up. Oh, I love them.
yeah, they're very high up, and they have the signature of a B, basically. Second of all, you have to remember, Israel already had air dominance over Iran. They had no anti-air setup, let alone anything that could target a B-2 bomber. So the fact is, even if this was an active war zone, I do think the bombers would have gone through. But point is, Iran was already beaten down. There's a reason why they were bombing Iran with fighter jets and not missiles. It's because they took down their air defense. So I would even argue a B-52 could have made it in.
This is true. This is probably true. That's why I was saying it. That when it comes to their defense, it
Didn't we use?
wasn't up to par.
We used Navy ships as well to bomb.
In this particular attack, I
Yeah.
don't believe so.
Yeah.
No, Navy ships wouldn't have the strong enough weapons to
In
do so.
Well,
the
if it was a destroyer, it could. But,
in the
But up
report,
close,
but
not-
in this particular instance, it was just the bombers.
in the report by the, did y'all watch the press conference of Pete Hegseth and the other guy?
No, I didn't. Maybe he did mention.
We
something. Okay.
used Navy ships to fire missiles at Iran at the same time. I don't know if it hit I don't think those are
That
the
was
ones that
probably a
hit
deterrent.
Fordo.
That was probably
but
just like-
they did use the Navy for this
Or
as
it's probably
well.
air suppression as well to keep
Yeah.
their defense on
Right.
on the low.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I was going to say something, Pat. You made me lose it.
But I mean, talking about this kind of particular thing, like we've seen Congress completely lose their mind about it,
Oh, yeah.
right? I mean, there's even people on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one in particular that I want to talk about because at first I was kind of like, okay, this guy, he's good because he's pushing for he's pushing for things that should be. But then started looking into the guy a little bit more, and now he just sounds like a petulant child with a big stick trying to say, "Hey, look at me," And I'm pretty sure y'all know who I'm talking about, Thomas Massey.
Sassy
Right?
McMassey.
So this whole situation has blown up with him and Trump actually going back and forth on our podcast yesterday. I even showed the tweets because they were just hilarious. They were going back and forth.
It was great.
But there was one in particular that Thomas Massey, who has worked in law offices, right, should know the law, right, where he said that what Trump did was unconstitutional. And on the legislative lounge, when somebody says something's unconstitutional, we eat. It's why we call it the legislative lounge. So we take a look at the law. And he obviously he didn't provide any kind of depth of where he was violating the Constitution, right? the only thing that I can assume is that he's talking about in Article 1, Section 2, where it talks about the war power when it comes to declaring war. However, he also knows that the war powers resolution also exists, of 1973 to be exact, right? This was a resolution that came forth by Congress because it was in reacting to Nixon and the whole thing over in Vietnam, right? And that whole situation, saying that, oh, this is something that you can't do, you can't put us in situations like this, and all this other jazz. When in all reality, when you take a look at the actual article or the resolution itself, it quite literally says in there that the president has the ability to make airstrikes, right? Yeah. The only stipulations when you take a look at it, and I wish I could bring it up for you guys, but you guys can check out our podcast on YouTube or Facebook to see the actual article, because we showed you specifically in it. But it's talking about here, in absence of the declaration of war, in any case in which the United States armed forces are introduced, it talks about particular scenarios in which those are, right? But then it says, what the president has to do shall submit within 48 hours to the Speaker of the House of Representatives and to the Speaker pro tempore of the Senate to report in writing the forthcomings of the circumstances necessary to introduction, right? It has to have the Constitution and legislative authority under which such introduction took place. That's already determined at the beginning of this resolution, because at the very top it talks about under Article 1, Section 8. I said Section 2, so that's my correction. Section 8, it talks about the specifics of the president, and the constitutional powers of the commander-in-chief are introduced in that section as well, right? So in this is saying that the president, he can do it. He just has to notify within 48 hours of doing it to the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. He did that. And the other stipulation is he has to withdraw any troops within 60 days. It was done that day. So I need somebody to point out to me where the violation is.
Absolutely. I don't think there was a violation. I'm going to speak from the standpoint of when this all first happened. I lost about 208 followers when this happened, simply because I took the stance of MTG. I took the stance of Thomas Massey. But I think where the fork in the road for me and Thomas was, I believe that Massey thought that this would lead to war. Mm-hmm. And I thought that this was going to go in a completely separate route. It didn't. Iran struck back, and they couldn't even hit us. That's right. How bad they are. I mean, Qatar stopped them from hitting us. We didn't even have to do anything. A lot of people thought that we were going to war with Iran, and that's not what happened. That's not what happened. And so they jumped the gun. They jumped the gun, and now Trump has the gun. And, you know, there's a great saying down here in Texas, it's no fun when the rabbit's got the gun. Because now he's going, 198 Democrats just said what I did was completely correct. And yet here you are. And they hate me. They can't stand me. They wanted me. If they could have dropped me on Iran, they would have done that. Mm-hmm. They can't stand me. And yet even they said what I did was legal. Mm-hmm. And so it put them in a position to where they weren't prepared for Trump to do what Donald Trump does all the time and create these deals that no one really understands how we made them and what's the kinks and all that of the deals. But he makes these deals that surpass the understanding of the common man. And so because of that, I think now that puts Massey, Sassy with Massey, as he likes to call himself, in a position that is... You look crazy now. Mm-hmm. Granted, I still think he's a wonderful representative. I still think that he's one of the few people that actually read the legislation. But at the same time, just as a broken clock is correct twice a day, it's also wrong for the rest of the day.
Right. And, I mean, when it comes to Thomas Massey, it's kind of funny to see the I'm going to let you go here in a second, Brian, sorry. But it's funny to see the timeline of when he stated that. And then, like, a couple hours later, after I had already responded to him, and probably several others, talking about the Wars Power Act, he started slipping that into his tweets. I'm like, So you do know what it is now because you probably went and read it afterwards. So you know how your original statement was pretty stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Thomas Massey, I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's one of the few good politicians up on Capitol Hill. I mean, frankly, is very transparent where he gets his money from, which is a thing I'm very happy about.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't claim to know everything. Every now and then, he does have moments like these where he oversteps a little bit. But I would disagree with Trump's actions here. I think Massey, frankly, is a good Republican for the sole fact that he's willing to stand on the core values. Mm-hmm. He's a conservative first, Republican second, which is something I have a lot of respect for him for. Because a lot of people nowadays, they're willing to say, for the sake of the party, for the sake of the MAGA, we need to do this, even if it goes against my conservative values, because this is what the movement wants or needs. And I disagree with that idea completely. Because at that point, what are we conserving?
Right.
What are we really fighting for? If we're allowing these people who are of the establishment dictate what MAGA is, dictate what the Republican Party should be, do I really want to be a part of that movement? Do I really want to associate myself with these people?
Right.
You could argue that Massey might be wrong. You could argue that Massey, overstepped his bounds here. You could even say he was wrong with by saying things were unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm.
But the heart of his message is this: the establishment has infiltrated the MAGA movement.
True.
And for better or for worse, Trump is in a position where he can't really do the change he promised anymore because of that infiltration. And you can't call out that infiltration without being called not a Republican, anti-MAGA. And in some instances, a rhino, but not in the traditional sense where you're just a neocon, but a rhino who doesn't align with the non-conservative values of the Republican Party. And for me, that's my biggest thing in this whole situation. It's, Massey might be wrong here and there, but overall, he represents a politician that we need more of in the Republican Party, not less.
And that's why I was saying from the very beginning, when I first looked into Thomas Massey, I loved everything he was saying. Like the Doge cuts. He was a huge stickler on the whole Doge cuts. I was with him 100%. I still have the comments, the tweets, or whatever you want to call them, of me supporting Thomas Massey. It's just, when you're wrong, man, you got to admit it. Like, and even in this particular situation, he can mend the fesses with Trump because he even self-proclaims he's MAGA, right? So he can mend this fence, but it's like everybody knows Donald Trump. Obviously, everybody knows that I think he talks too much, and I think he's a little too arrogant at times. But a lot of the times he's right. And in this situation, he was right because he called it from the beginning. He said, "We'll bomb the crap out of them, and they'll come to peace." He called it. And when you say something as wrong as, first of all, as Thomas Massey did, and then Trump being as right as he was, you have to eat your pride and say, "Hey, I still believe in your core values," right?
Yep.
Because Trump and him, they have those same core values of wanting to reduce the debt. I mean, that's literally what the man ran on, which is a lot of what Thomas Massey does. He wants to get rid of the filth, get rid of the extra expenditures, and all this other stuff. So it's like somebody's got to eat their pride here. And we all know Donald Trump ain't going to do it because he was right, right? And that's just going to make it worse. Even if he was wrong, he probably wouldn't do it anyways because we all know Trump. But in all reality, we have to keep the GOP together. I understand getting rid of the infiltration. Trust me, I've got my own campaigns against people. Like here in Texas, we've got the Dan Crenshaws, get them out, right? But it's one of those situations where we have to keep those people that believe in the core values in line. Yeah. And when somebody's wrong, even Donald Trump, you got it. Donald Trump, listen to me. When you're wrong, which I'm not trying to boast you up here, but a lot of times you're not. But when you are wrong, you need to admit it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems, though, I've supported Trump for
10 years.
Last week made 10 years. I'm 20 years old, by the way.
I was gonna say, were you in middle school?
I'm 20 years old. I was a freshman in middle school with a handmade "Make America Great Again" shirt. So there is just, if you call me anti-MAGA, you should do some self-reflection. I have supported the president of the United States longer than his own vice president has. Okay, so you can't call me. My social media handle was Real Baby MAGA.
Still is too.
It still is. You cannot call me anti-MAGA, but the amount of people who told me, take MAGA out of your name, you're not a Trump supporter, you're this, you're that. I've supported Trump longer than you. I called him out on one thing, which was not even the strike. All I said was, Mr. President, you're pro-peace, you're anti-war. Whatever you're about to do, just make sure it doesn't get us in another war. That's all I said.
Yeah.
I didn't say whether I agreed with them. That was a personal pleading from me. Lost 200 followers for it. Simply because people, they say that we're in a cult, and we try to fight it, but it's really hard to fight when you have people like that who can't tell the difference between right and wrong. I made that post,
No,
and I had to.
there, Pat. They can see right from wrong. It's just for them, right is anything Trump says is good, and then wrong is what he says is bad.
But that's the thing. It's technically still not the true
Exactly.
right from wrong.
Completely agree.
I made one post, and if you don't mind, I want to just read.
Yeah.
I want to just read it because I like to read. I'm not good with the numbers and math, but I can do pretty good with words. All I said was what happened to the pro-peace, anti-establishment Donald Trump. America first does not mean joining into senseless new wars. I'm sure Bush and Obama are pleased. This is not what making America great again looks like. Why is Trump creating fractions in the base? America first means America first. And this was me responding to when he said, somebody please explain to Kooky Tucker, that tweet, right? That's all I asked. That's all I said. And I mean, people started calling me, you hate Trump now? What is happening with you? I said, what? What are you talking about? Somebody asked me if I got hacked. I said, no. What are you talking about? My phone was ringing. I said, all I did was say one thing in comparison to, I don't know, the 20,000 posts I have on my page. The pinned thing is literally me going like this, saying I endorse Donald Trump. But the one bad thing that you say about the president, it's all of a sudden, I'm worse than a communist.
Right. And see, that's what I want to... This is a message to all the MAGA out there, right? If you're Republican or somebody that just, like, you don't even like that label of MAGA, but you support Donald Trump, it is okay to disagree at times. That's what makes us different from the left. The fact that they can't say anything bad about Joe Biden should be a clear indication that we are based better than they are, due to the fact that the majority of us can question Donald Trump on some of his motives. I question some of the things that he did in his first term. You can do it. It's okay. That doesn't make you un-MAGA. It doesn't make you unconservative. It doesn't make you liberal, right? That logic needs to die. It just honestly does. But, I mean, because if we can't fight, like, it's not, I'm not trying to say it's a left versus right fight, but in all reality, that's what society's made it, right? And you have the left sitting here calling Trump a warmonger now and all this other stuff when you have countries like Pakistan literally calling for him to win the Nobel Peace Prize, for God's sakes. But this is what I have to say to the left, especially those that have a problem with him bombing and saying that it's illegal and it's unconstitutional and all this. I want to know, where were you when Barack Obama bombed Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen, Somalia, Pakistan, when George Bush went into bombed Afghanistan and Iraq? Mind you, these are all without congressional approval. All right? Approval, like you guys claim. Bill Clinton, Iraq, Serbia, Sudan, Afghanistan. George H. Bush, Iraq, Panama. Reagan, Libya and Grenada. Jimmy Carter, a number of them. You got Nixon, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. Johnson, Vietnam, Dominican Republic. Where were you guys on all of them? Because some of these are liberals, right? Democrats. Where were you guys when they didn't get congressional approval? But now Donald Trump needs it.
Well, most of them weren't born yet. That's
Sure.
number one. I was watching, this was my first time ever watching the Charlie Kirk show. I didn't even know he had a show. But
has a show?
I didn't even know he had a show until Trump was going to give like the press conference.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go to my room and turn my TV on because I was doing something on my computer. So I just went to YouTube live Trump, and the first thing that popped up was Charlie Kirk. I was like, oh, he's got a live show. Okay, let's watch it. And they have like this email thing to where if you email in, you can give your opinions on the thing. And he had like the ages. The older you were, the more likely you were to say that what Trump did was constitutional and needed to happen. The younger you were, which is Charlie Kirk's main audience, so Gen Z, basically 25 and below, they were all like, this is wrong, Trump shouldn't have done this, yada, yada, yada. And I also would say that I give credit to people like if you're on the right and you didn't agree with Trump, it's probably because you follow people like Nick Fuentes, who lives in his mother's basement. That's probably where you're getting your information from. If you're on the left, you got it from kooky Bernie Sanders, whose dentures fall out when he's giving a speech, or AOC, who used to be a bartender. So you're not. These are three very bad, credible sources that a lot of people are getting their information from.
Right. And I mean, they took it as far as AOC and several other people calling for his impeachment over this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And it came down to an actual vote today, which just dropped a couple hours ago. Luckily, it didn't go through. I mean, we all knew that wasn't going to happen, obviously. But what's more surprising for all the leftists, please hear me when I say this, the vote died, but it didn't die. It was completely slaughtered because the vote was 334 to 79. That means that 128 Democrats voted in favor of Donald Trump because it's not illegal. It hasn't been illegal, or it wasn't prior to, but it definitely hasn't been illegal since 1973 because of the War Powers Act that literally gives him the right to do it. Because a lot of people don't understand when it comes to like going back to like the whole habeas corpus with the LA riots and stuff like that. Like if you guys actually read the original of that, it only applies to the Army and the Navy. The Marines weren't even in existence when that happened, when that came into play. People don't read, though. They don't understand these kind of things. So it's like when you take a look at the House minority leader, right? He was amongst the 128, right? He is literally the leaders of the Democrats in the House. He voted, no, don't impeach Donald Trump. So what are we doing, Democrats?
Yeah.
All of your Gen Zs or and it's not even just Gen Z. You were sitting here saying that majority. I've seen so many older people on TikTok sitting there crying on their phone saying, we're going to World War III because Donald Trump violated the law. Like, no.
The Facebook mafia, they got you.
It's crazy to see that these individuals don't understand how our country works. They don't. Most of them don't even. Most of them don't even understand how it's set up. I don't know how many times I've had somebody come into our lives and try to debate us, and I've had one gentleman say, "Yeah, the three branches of Congress," and he was bold-faced in it. He said the legislative, the judicial, and the executive. Right? At least he knew what that was.
He knew
right?
there was three, just didn't know.
But he couldn't explain the difference between Congress or Senate. And then there's people that are trying to say that, oh, there's Congress, and there's another one. There's Congress, and then there's Senate. Like, what American civics class are you guys being taught? This is ridiculous.
Their vote matters as much as yours, by the way.
Right.
That's the
I
scary
think
part.
it's crazy because people hear like U.S. congressman, so they automatically go, "Oh, he's not a senator; he's a congressman." I'm sorry, can't say that on live.
No, I totally what you feel. I totally feel you. But because if it wasn't on this show, I would definitely myself. Because in all reality, it's so sad to see not only the younger generation; it's almost expected from them, right? Because they don't teach anything in school nowadays. But the surprising matter is how many older people, like, and I'm talking like 40 and above, right? And even 40s is still in my generation. But like I've seen so many people that are 40 years old. Your kids are almost out of your house at 40 years old in most cases, and you don't know how our Congress is set up. You don't know the Constitution. Like if I asked people, what is Article 1 about? 95 to 99% of people couldn't tell me what it's about. They couldn't even give me a gist of it. It's the way the legislative branch is set up. What's Article 2? Oh, I don't know. It's just amazing, and these people are allowed to vote. And people might think this is fascist of me. And I'm y'all know me. I don't care. I'll say what I want to say. I think personally that you should be required to take a civics test every 2 years and pass with over a 95% percentile in order to be eligible to vote. And this is my case. And I want voting is not a right.
Exactly.
The Constitution says it's a privilege, right? It doesn't say you have the right to vote, right? The Constitution gives you privileges in regards to how to vote, right? But those privileges, we already know, can be taken away. Felons can't do it. Illegal immigrants can't do it, even though they do. And so on and so forth. So what's your guys' take on that?
It's funny. I just had a debate with a young lady out of California. And before we started the debate, I said, I will not debate you Because, I mean, we kind of got like through the foundations of what we were going to be debating. I said, okay, now in order to move forward, you got to bring forth some pretrial motions.
Right.
I need to know what 5 times 5 is. That's number one. Off the top of your head. She couldn't get it. I said,
Qualifying questions is what I come.
Exactly. This is my pretrial
I
motion.
do the same thing.
You got to know what 5 times 5 is. You got to name me at least one general from the Civil War and World War II. One of them was a president.
I know World War II.
Are you asking us right now? Or?
I mean, I can name the other ones on the other
Right?
side.
Wait.
I know the Confederate. You got to give me a Confederate one. You got to give me a
Robert
rebel
E.
one.
Lee.
Robert Lee and Grant.
Right.
Those are easy.
Those are the two that I
Grant,
expect.
yeah.
And there's Sherman, too.
And then you have to give me a World War II general.
Yeah.
You got Patton.
There you go.
got
That's the one I
Bradley.
like. That's the one I like bringing
Yeah,
up.
Patton.
Right? These are the questions you have to tell me before we get into a debate.
Right.
Because if you don't know the answer to those, then how are you going to tell me?
I do the same thing.
anything?
Like for the last couple months, right? People wanted to talk about tariffs. So I asked them, before we get into that topic, explain to me what Incoterms are. And if you can't, you're not qualified to have this conversation with me.
Thank you. That's all. And the amount of people that go, duh. No, don't do that now.
You know how many economics majors have come into my lives and don't know what Incoterms are? I'm like, how do you not? They literally teach you that in Economics 101. I don't understand that. But
And don't
anyway.
use a word you can't spell. Use a word on me. If you use it, this is how you know you're beating me in a debate. Is if you use a word on me and I look at you and I say I can't let you do this to me. Spell it. And if you can't spell it, oh, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Those are the two. You got to ask the qualified. I'm helping y'all at home. You're about to get into that debate at Thanksgiving or something. You look at them, give them the qualifying questions, and have them have a spelling bee. You'll win every time.
But Brad, I want to give you a
Yeah.
couple minutes here right at the end on respond to anything or say whatever you want at the end.
So, I mean, just to bandwagon off that point and I get off topic completely. I've been a long-term supporter of the idea that not everyone should vote. I've gotten into a couple of arguments about it, frankly, just because it's so foreign to most Americans. What do you mean everyone shouldn't be able to vote? It's like what democracy is built off of. Stop you right there. I'm not a supporter of democracy. That's the first off. Read some Aristotle. Really recommend it.
Oh, here we go. Plato's better.
No.
You're wrong. We're not doing this. Like, we had this for, like, I think 10, 20 minutes. We argued Plato versus Aristotle. It went nowhere. We never got it solved. But I don't believe in democracy being a fundamental good. I mean, you look at Iraq, for example. We said, oh, democracy is so good. We should give them democracy, and they're going to be, prosperous and peaceful. Mm-hmm. No. That's how you got ISIS, because that instability that was caused after the war. And for that reason, I don't think democracy is good in our country. First of all, America wasn't a democracy when we first began. Mm-hmm. We were a landing voting system, if I remember correctly, where if you had you were received the privilege to vote. Once again, not the right, the privilege.
Taking my thunder. I was about to say this, but go ahead.
Yep. If you had a certain amount of land or wealth, it was it varied state by state. They had different requirements. Some of the more urbanized states were wealth-based, while the more rural ones had land requirements. Mm-hmm. This was the case until Andrew Jackson came into power and instituted a general voting thing for all free men in the United States. So, first of all, the Founding Fathers never intended for us to be a democracy. They knew the pitfalls of allowing people who don't have a stake in the country having a stake in how it's run.
Yeah.
You wouldn't ask a barista how to build a house. Likewise, why would you ask someone who doesn't know about the government how to run the government?
Exactly.
Right.
So that's pretty simple for me. I just don't think everyone should be able to vote. I think people who are educated on what they're voting for and know why they're voting for the thing they are voting for should be able to vote. That's simple. I think the idea of democracy being a whole good is an idiotic, frankly, liberal propaganda.
Right.
That has been propagated in our schools the most. I mean, you can open a textbook, it's always America's a democracy. It's never America's a republic. It's always something.
And I was like, you ask people, what's the difference between a republic and a democracy? If you can't explain that to me, because there are very clear differences, then we ain't talking.
Another qualifier right there.
You're right. To kind of,
I'm gonna have to steal that one, actually.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's crazy how many people don't know that. But to kind of spin off of what you were just saying a moment ago, to prove my point, back in the day, you had to own land here in America to be eligible to vote. So it's not like it's a foreign concept to us that you have to be qualified in some manner. Mm-hmm. So for all those people out there who are saying, oh, well, minorities and women couldn't vote until the 19th Amendment, like false. there was a black woman in the 1800s that actually ran for president. So let's talk about that. Yes, they absolutely did. So just defeating that narrative. But I'm going to give you a couple minutes just to kind of respond to anything or tell the audience anything.
Oh, is this like on the Patriots rapid fire?
What is that?
Rapid fire. Yeah, absolutely. Facebook Mafia, please, come on, stop it. It's getting out of control. I like what you said with the test. Vivek Ramaswamy brought that up, and that's what brought my attention to him. A lot of people are, experts depending on what the news tells them to be an expert in for the right. When it comes to the left has had to buy so many different flags to describe their personality that it's not funny. They're keeping Amazon in business right now. But both sides need to really have a sit-down, serious talk that it's okay not to know everything and be honest with yourself and other people that you don't know everything. I had a lady come in my comment section tell me that, she was just so... educated in Iran, and that Iran has weapons of mass destruction, and she quoted Bush. And I said, ma'am, that was Iraq. So sometimes it's better to just be...
Yep.
I was always told that the quietest person in the room tends to be the most powerful. And that was what the saying was. Right. So... as long as you shut up, we won't know how stupid you are. That's basically what they taught me.
Absolutely. I mean, y'all can see how my social media it is when it comes to people that talk on subjects that they're just, just by how they sound, that they're just not up to par is the way I'll put it, to be nice, right? But this whole situation's behind us at this point. Congress has voted down. Iran doesn't have the nuclear equipment anymore. There's a ceasefire in place. We're good to go, guys. Like, everything straightforward should be America first at this point. And if you didn't think that bombing was America first, then you obviously don't know geopolitical standpoints, because in all reality, that was a world thing. Because if Iran got a nuclear weapon, honestly, I know you have a different opinion on it. However, it wouldn't have been good for anybody. But anyways, we thank you guys for joining us tonight. We thank the Patriots Den for joining us on such short notice. But tune into their show on Thursdays at noon?
No. 10 a.m.
10 a.m. All right. Thursdays, 10 a.m. And we'll see you guys here back next week at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. But go follow all the social medias. And thank you, Radio DaBang, for having us again.